Thanks, Patsy. You almost got it this time. I am here with Double Lift. Double Lift, congratulations on your victory. Now, this is the first time that TSM has beaten Dignitas this split, and 3-1 at that. How were you and the team able to rally and pick up this victory today?
Yeah, coming into the match, I was kind of scary because Dig was the only opponent that we had a losing record in the regular split, and we got stomped by them pretty much every game. So I think for them, they had a lot of confidence coming in, but we were really cautious because the team was on an upswing with the new bot lane, and their bot lane was playing really well recently. So, and also going 0-4 on them in the regular split, we had a lot of work to do. So we were all a little bit nervous as usual, but we just worked really hard, I guess. Got lucky.
Well, the bot lane matchup was actually one that was pretty hyped up. Everyone wanted to see Adrian Alteg versus you and Biofrost. What was that bot lane like for you in the series?
They aren't very good 2v2, but they're really good at setting up ganks with their Jeller. I think Shrimp is like he's like the third bot laner on that team, and it's kind of annoying to play against that, but I think we did a good job of sponging up that pressure, you know, the Maokai TPs and the ganks and the Talia realms. So I didn't fall super far behind this series, which was really important, especially right now. Like if you get screwed early game bot lane, then you're never going to be relevant ever again. So it's really important to not make any mistakes in the first like 10 minutes against a team that's going to camp you. And that's pretty much what we did. Also, we 2v2 killed them. Peace.
Well, there you go. After the normal split, you guys won a playoff bye, so you guys had an extra week to prepare. How did you use that extra week to prepare coming into the series?
We just did a lot of scrims, and I feel like most teams, if they had a lot of time, they would take a pretty extended break, but we basically just took like one day off, and then we just been practicing. I think Dig they're really, really daunting opponent because not only, you know, like I was saying, our bad record against them, but they just looked really good. I think our matches were really close, and especially in game 4, it was a matter of like them making one mistake, getting engaged on one time. The game is super tense because neither team is making a lot of mistakes early game, so there's not a lot of snowballing. And then when it comes to like mid and late game, it's those little like minute decisions. So like we didn't want to take any breaks, we didn't want to do anything, we just wanted to practice.
Well, you did it. You beat Dig today, but yesterday, Immortals Pobelter had some words to say. He said that he felt very confident in going against anyone next week in the finals. What do you have to say to that?
The last time Pobe won the finals, I carried him, so I think we're gonna beat Immortals in the finals.
All right, well, good luck with that. And to wrap up our series, we're going to throw it over to the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Avli. Strong words out of Double It, but rightfully so, as they have once again qualified for the North American Finals here. TSM looking to do what no other team has done, win it 3 times in a row, twice in the same calendar year. Double It slotting back into the roster here in summer. They don't miss a beat, and they're moving on to the finals yet again, but with a new opponent.
Yeah, I mean, Immortals making their first appearance, and, you know, you and I were talking pre-show about how what happens every year is that someone new wins in summer after beating somebody with some changes that they made in spring. So this could be Immortals' start to their, you know, 2 victories in a row, but it's going to be tough versus TSM.
It could be, because once again, it is the number 1 and 2 seeds from the regular season, and these guys were tied in match record, tied in head-to-head 1-1, and it was just a 4-game difference that gave TSM the tiebreaker ultimately. So really, I'm not surprised to see these 2 teams make the finals, and it's going to be a damn good one.
Right, Immortals with a dominant 3-0 yesterday, TSM with a fairly dominant 3-1 today. Let's roll it back just a quick moment and discuss this 4th game of the series, how TSM put the last victory together, starting in Champion Select this time around. Dignitas on the blue side again, prioritizing that Jarvan, but going to the jungle this time around.
This is why we were saying, you know, it's a little scary taking game 4 on blue side again here with Dig having side selection. They take that Jarvan again, and right away it pays huge dividends. Very fast super leash clear up to the top side, get the flash out, keep the aggression up with the jungle invade that ultimately gets a kill on Sven. And all of a sudden it's saying, like, oh god, Dig might start snowballing around this top side because they do have a lot of playmaking up there.
Yeah, and obviously Dig knows something that I don't hear, because the thing that stood out to me every single draft was the Rakan and Ashe bans. If you're really afraid of this Rakan, I feel like the banning of it is something that is really kind of clogging this champion select. The Braum was a counter to the Xayah and the Twitch and team fights and seemed to be a really big factor in the 2-on-2s, whereas I feel like Rakan is a free laning phase in most matchups. I could be wrong about that, but I definitely feel like it's something that you shouldn't be that afraid of when we have a lot of things on the table you could be banning away.
Especially when you take into account just TSM as a team. Biofrost can play playmakers, but he hasn't shown a big affinity towards them outside of Thresh and kind of Braum. And so if you're scared about who's who's going to be beating you in a series. I'm much more scared of Bjergsen. I'm much more scared of Doublelift. Biofrost is relatively low on that list, so if you had to drop a ban for the Rakan here, I would understand why they were doing that.
I would even favor a Braum ban over it.
Yeah, sure.
Exactly. Yeah, there's something to be said for just simply making them show it, right? We respect the fact that it's probably been practiced and that we do, fear the mechanical prowess of these players on these champions, but through 4 games, make them play it one time. Make them show that on the day they have what it takes to put those 2 champions to use effectively. Let's go ahead and push into the game, though. 7 minutes in, TSM with a 2-0 on an invade, bouncing back from that early first blood that was given over by Svenskeren.
And it's just a little greedy by Dignitas. They made a play to get the enemy team's blue buff. They try and defend their own. They're just too far away from the Maokai, and a nice knockback by Keen. While it does a lot of damage, it's still a 3v2 situation. They get this chase down kill as you see that Maokai ult come in real late, not actually able to connect on anybody. And this was kind of the catalyst to getting TSM back into kind of an even game state.
Yeah, I actually really hate that play from Dignitas because that's your very heavily losing side of the map. That is your losing quadrant between a Lucian mid that's going to beat the mid lane and a Cho'Gath top that's going to shove the Maokai in, right? And then the jungle comes in, and that's the blue buff that you got on the other side of the map. You could just say that's a handshake wash. We have dragon control now on an Infernal on bottom side, but they decide to contest their top side, which I feel like you have no business doing when the Lucian's going to have priority early.
Well, there you have it. I can't argue with anything, and I see the nod of approval here out of Mark as well. Let's push ahead to 16 minutes into the game. Another 2-0 in favor of TSM.
And this is when things seem like they start getting out of control for TSM because Dignitas like to force a lot of plays around the bot lane as well this series, but they tended to get outplayed a lot of the time. A lot of dives turned wrong. Here, once again, Doublelift's able to get out. The Talia comes in a little bit late. The CC chain's not quite there. Adrian goes down right away, and then it's very easy for TSM to keep chasing forward because once again, Talia's caught on the backside of the turret with no minion wave. And then during all of that, Someday is just taking a walk through his own jungle, and a hungry Bjergsen's down there as well.
Right, 3-0 is the total trade, 2-0 in the top lane, and this 1v1 kill here for Bjergsen while all of that is unfolding. Let's talk about the Lucian, the guy in the mid lane. Bjergsen, huge playmaker for this squad, but seems to be comfortable across so many champions. When we talk about threats and how to approach champion select against this team, I still don't really know what the solution would ever be for the mid lane.
Yeah, it is fantastic because those memes where it's like, how could you let him have Syndra? How could you let him have LeBlanc, Lucian, anything, right? And that's the beauty of Bjergsen is if you're really on that team, you're just like, this is such a great place for us to be in champion select in terms of pressure regardless of the matchup because he's been showing that he can play everything, and that's been kind of one of his aspirations. Remember the Galio, and they got flamed for playing it at first? It's like, it's not him like, having to play these things and then people being like, oh, the side lanes can't carry. He wants to be able to play everything because that's what you need to be able to do.
Yeah, especially in the regular season. I love TSM's approach. Just we're here to get better. If we have to play something that looks stupid for 2 weeks, we'll do it. And Bjergsen as well, just such a monster this series. Eventually, Diggs kind of stopped prioritizing bans around him a little bit because they're like, well, it doesn't matter what we pick into him. He's going to have a good performance. Right. So, Bjergsen just taking over the lane multiple times for his Keen and then doing a pretty good job spreading it elsewhere on the map, coordinating with his jungler for invades like that to bring games back into his favor.
Yeah, he's so damn good that these matchups that I'm like, oh yeah, that's a losing matchup for that champion into the other one. Like, yeah, Castan's just gonna get shoved in early from Leah, etc. And that's why I'm like, he's winning what I perceive as losing matchups in two of those games that are on the board right there. And I'm just like, he's making me rethink these matchups, but then it may just be a skill disparity in the mid lane where he's just such a damn good player.
An absolute monster of a player, is no stranger to the NALCS finals, has many of those trophies as we saw in the opening video to the day. It really just does, though, build the hype for, okay, what's the next achievement he can get? And that's right alongside the organizational achievements, which is, can he get that 3-peat? Right, as an individual, right alongside all the rest of these veterans.
I mean, that's a huge storyline compared with Immortals as an organization trying to find their first. A lot of these players trying to find their first on a new team. Most of them having been, like we said multiple times, kind of leftovers from other teams being traded away in favor of other players and things like that.
Yeah, and the thing about Bjergsen is like, you're saying what's next for him. The guy has those 4 trophies that we saw, looking for 5. He already has MVP awards, right? He's looking at Worlds a lot of the time. And he's realizing that you can't drop anything along the way. You can't drop titles in the NALCS if you want to be successful internationally. And that's been the frustrating part for TSM and Bjergsen, is when you get on that stage, they've been falling flat a lot of the times. And so he wants to get back there, and he wants to be a competitor in those top brackets.
Got to keep the momentum going there for TSM if they want to do well internationally. Now, as we punch our tickets to Boston, we want to highlight some of the LCS big plays coming out of the semifinal weekend, brought to you by Acer, as always. First up, Blue Star Mist tweeted out during Immortals versus CLG, who needs GA when you've got Olay? Let's take a look.
There's very low mana on Huhi.
Gotta be careful the gravity field gets out of that one. Last few hits, last Fang! Oh, he gets away! He's gonna be able to take down Pobelter! One last shot and Pobelter lives! Not even close, baby!
Oh, Eugene.
I'm just diving.
Good job.
Oh, nice.
Oh? Their bot lane's moving. Their bot lane's moving to you, Jake. Their bot lane's moving to you, Jake.
I'm here.
Their bot lane's moving to you, Jake.
I'm backing.
Okay. He flashed there. What the hell? I red. Whoops, I thought I had heal.
Whoops, I thought I had heal. Well, you did. You had Alistair's heal.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. When you watch that play, you're like, oh my god, Ole is so smart that he knew the passive heal was just enough to save him, and then it's like, never mind.
Yeah, I feel like Ole didn't also realize that he had heal up.
Right place, right time, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Right place, right time for the Alistair, making the roam. And that's what he's known for. That's what every other team says about Ole and Immortals, is that he is the most terrifying support to play against because they still somehow win their lane while he's the most effective roamer on the map.
And I remember the interview afterwards with Pobelter where he's like, I didn't know that Ole was actually coming mid.
Right.
So even his own team doesn't know how much he's roaming.
Yeah, I mean, because that's a play where Pobelter got outplayed. He was going to get killed underneath the turret there as Victor kite out. So just great play by Ole, saving his teammates even when they don't know they need it.
Yep. Next up, the Mad Dan wanted to make clear, not that anyone needed reminding, but Bjergsen is an absolute monster. That's true, but it doesn't hurt to get a reminder every once in a while.
Topside Bjergsen, flash ultis onto Sunday, diving under the turret. Sunday is going to melt.
Bjergsen going for his first roam of the game. Cassiopeia. He's going to put some slick moves here on Someday as well to dodge out, just make sure he doesn't get knocked up. Well, never mind.
Oh my god, Bjergsen with a great stun, still grounded. King gonna get solo killed.
Just level 5 though, and TSM definitely first to the spot.
Going aggressive, flash, huge seismic shot. Keen with a fat amount of damage. Haunter still takes out Trip. They need to chase down Keen as Bjergsen flashes in aggressively. Use the culling, last few autos, weaves them in perfectly.
Yo, get ready.
Okay.
What do you have?
He's zoom. Take the blue.
Good shit.
Good Seriously.
But I mean, Lucian's dash cooldown is low enough anyway, and then he gets a seismic shove to help him out. I mean, come on,
get
making it easy on him.
I'm waiting for the double lift versus Bjergsen 1v1 Lucian. Who's the better Lucian? Whose pocket pick is this really?
All stars this year. Let's go.
Yeah, I think a lot of those highlights, it looks easy almost for Bjergsen because he's just always in the right place, right time. That solo kill on Talia, countering that kind of half roam she was looking for, waiting in the brush. That kind of stuff, when you see the highlight, you're like, oh yeah, someone face checked him. It was easy, but it's just such heads up, intelligent play to set yourself up for something that is not hard to execute.
He makes the plays look easy, but I also want to return to your point about the matchups, right? And how Bjergsen changes the way you think about matchups. He makes you question whether or not things are losing or winning matchups. And you don't necessarily see that as much through video, but you see it when you look at the stats and the actual champions that he had to play.
Yeah, in that one clip that we saw where he was Cassiopeia roaming, he's up against Syndra. I'm like, wait, how is Cassiopeia getting roam time against a Syndra that should be using the orbs constantly to keep you under turret?
Absolutely.
And he's able to find time in these matchups because I feel like his fundamentals are just so good. I went back and I watched the Kassadin game. He's like pulling 3 caster minions into the bush to help start a freeze to build up for a time where Svenskeren and him can invade like a minute later. So his fundamentals are just incredible. Regardless of which champion he's on, he understands the waves.
Can't say enough about him. He's damn good.
Yeah.
There it is. With our last semifinal match set in stone, we now know our schedule looking towards Boston. Our finals weekend at the TD Garden kicks off with a battle for 3rd place between Team Dignitas and Counterlogic Gaming, followed by the championship bout between TSM and Immortals. Let's pull back for a moment. Let's talk about these matchups. Let's start with our 3rd place matchup in Counterlogic Gaming versus Team Dignitas. Both of these teams just suffering defeats at the hands of Immortals and TSM. How will they rebound?
I think the big thing for CLG is just trying to figure out some way to recover because they feel like they are a step below these other teams in playoffs. Even the series between TSM and Dig, Game 1 came down to a great call by TSM. Game 2 was a little bit of a stomp, but then the other 2 games, as we saw, were super, super close. So I think, while TSM clearly showed they're the better team, it wasn't by such a huge factor that we saw in the Immortal CLG series. Right. So CLG is going to have to do some big improvements to get into a position that they can actually beat Dignitas here.
Yeah, CLG have a lot of work to do, and they'll have a little bit of time to work with Omar God and stuff like that, but it was kind of all over the place. But I feel like their solo laners were really big bright spots for them, and what we saw today was Keen wasn't able to hold up to Bjergsen, but also in the top lane, there are ways to kind of exploit Someday, because he's not playing those carries right now. It seems to be one of those tank metas, even with Gnar up and stuff like that. He's playing for the team, So being able to get an advantage with Darshan could be a possibility for them on CLG's
Now,
side.
Doublelift, very confident on the side of TSM, looking at Immortals, saying, hey, the last time Pobelter won a finals, I was the one who carried him to it. Now, on the flip side, Pobelter just as equally, showed confidence in their post-game, saying that they feel they're going to have to beat everybody anyway in terms of their aspirations for international play as well. So both teams coming in confident. How are you guys looking at this matchup?
The thing that I'm really excited about is it doesn't feel like either team has a clear weakness where you say, oh, that's a huge advantage for them. I mean, like, yes, I would say Bjergsen is better than Pobelter, but it's not, insurmountable. We've seen Pobelter win versus Bjergsen that time that, Doublelift carried him or whatever. And I would say, compared to Dig, where Keen's weak, and then CLG, oh my God's playing not so well. This is a matchup where there are not any key weaknesses for either team.
Yeah, and the crazy thing that I've been noticing, like in this TSM series, is they were obviously scrimming Immortals during this time. Playing Kog'Maw, prioritizing it very heavily, Cody Sun champion. The mid lane, the Lucian coming through, we saw Pobelter play that as well and have a little bit of an affinity towards it. Flame in the top lane was known as one of those Cho'Gath players when it came around, and it's been picked up by Hauntzer. I feel like there's a lot that's been going on here, so these teams are going to be very familiar with each other, which means during this next week, you got to come up with new stuff to actually bring out and surprise them with, and that's what I'm looking forward to.
Can make Champions a very interesting final point.
Oh, I was going to say both coaches at points have talked about, when you script somebody, you don't show one team everything, you show two teams, a little bit of both of your strategies. So hopefully they have some stuff prepared. I would
something
like to
in the back pocket.
Oh yeah, you better, or you need, like you said, you need to make something new.
I've got faith. Two of the best coaches in the North American LCS will be teeing off against each other in Champion Select come next week. Now, after we crown the champion at the TD Garden, our top teams have Worlds just on the horizon. So let's get a reminder of what teams they might compete against. Currently, 5 teams have qualified for the play-ins in China with 7 spots remaining. And while TSM and Immortals, they're going to be joining 9 other teams in the group stage. Obviously, the big ticket names here, SKT slotting in, losing to Longzhu, of course, in the finals over there. EDG, RNG, No Strangers, G2, Flashwolves, HK. A lot of big names that you've heard of before here attending Worlds yet again.
Gigabyte Marines!
And the Gigabyte Marines. I mean, TSM's Kryptonite has made it into the tournament. That's going to turn some heads, for sure.
Watch out for group stage, because that's where you're going to be most scared of them. Also, once again, SKT not being the #1 seed out of Korea ruined somebody's day.
Oh, absolutely. There's going to be some terrifying groups coming out of the group draw show, I am certain. Now, that's going to do it from us here. But stay tuned for after the broadcast for NALCS tonight, where Digon, Kobe, and Zareen will break down the semifinals week and what that means as we look towards Boston. Otherwise, on behalf of myself, the casters, and the entire live broadcast crew, and a special thank you to Kiwi Kid for joining us earlier in the day. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week at the TD Garden.